Hey, good morning. This is Pete, North Las Vegas. I have my old carbine out that I put together in October of 1994. And I used a Colt conversion upper, 16-inch heavy barrel, 1 in 9 twist. And I put that on top of this Bushmaster lower that I bought about the same time. And this is not the phony baloney Bushmaster. This is the real deal. Wyndham. Okay, so like I said, I pieced this together in October of 1994, but there was something going on back then that some of you may not be aware of, or you may not be aware of all the details. So when I bought the Colt conversion upper, and you can see the copyright, 1994, it came with this additional paperwork. So I thought we would kind of look it over real quick. Assault weapon caution. Signed into law on September 12, 1994 by President Dipshit. And here's what they have to say about it. The law states an assault weapon is a semi-automatic rifle that has the ability to accept a detachable magazine and has at least 2 of the following. Folding or telescoping stock, pistol grip that protrudes conspicuously beneath the action of the weapon, a bayonet mount, a flash suppressor or threaded barrel designed to accommodate a flash suppressor, or a grenade launcher. So let's see if what I pieced together back then meets any of this criteria. Folding or telescoping stock. Yep. Pistol grip. Yep. Bayonet mount. Yep. Flash suppressor or threaded barrel design. Yep. Grenade launcher. Okay, I don't have a grenade launcher on it. So, like I said, I pieced this together in October of 1994, and this went into law in September 12th of 1994. Now, down here at the very bottom, you can have, they still sold all the parts. They still sold the uppers, the lowers, everything that had all the evil features. And so long as you bought the stuff before the September 12th, 1994 deadline, then you could piece it together and no problems. But if you bought anything after September 12th and pieced it together with the evil features, now you are a felon. Okay, I think we beat that one to death. So before we get into inspecting the rifle, I'm going to bore scope the barrel. Probably going to put a new spring in the buffer. And we'll talk about some of the peculiarities. Even though this is an aluminum buttstock, what Bushmaster was doing back then was they were building their buffer tubes and the buttstock to commercial specs. So you can see the one on the right there, 1.17. That's where this tube comes in. So you cannot put a mil-spec buttstock on there. I mean, maybe some of them might go on there, but it'll be so tight, you're not going to be happy with it. So that's the first thing. So what Colt was doing back in the 90s, if you bought just a conversion and upper, you would get the shaved off bolt carrier to clear the lower sear block type lowers that Colt was doing. And back then, Colt was the only one that was doing it. It wasn't required by law. I don't know why they did it. Could talk about that for a long time. But anyway, this is the type of bolt carrier that you got. So I brought my my sporter out in case those of you may not know what a lower sear block looks like. And I'll pop the top on this and show you the sear block. And then you'll know why they had to do that. Okay, so we're looking at my old Colt sporter right now. And this has the sear block I was talking about earlier. And these came pinned in 3 different ways. There was one version where there was just one blind pin on the side. And then there was another version where there was a blind pin and a roll pin that went down that hole. And then on this particular model, I have the blind pin on the right side also. So I have 2 blind pins and a roll pin on this model here. And back then, Colt was the only ones doing this. Nobody else was doing it. Like I said, this Bushmaster was bought about the same time frame. This was not required by law or policy or anything. I don't know why Colt did it. But that's why, depending on which type of Colt lower you have, you may have to have this shaved off bolt carrier to clear your sear block. So one of the other things that Colt did back then on their sear block rifles and bolt carrier groups is they left the firing pin unshrouded in here, and this also was to help stop you from putting a drop-in auto sear or M16 parts besides the shaved off area back here. So you can see on a full M16 bolt carrier, the firing pin is fully shrouded. Okay, so I happen to have a scale here, and I've always been curious as to, you know, what the weight difference is between a full carrier and this abomination here. So let's weigh these things and see what they look like. Okay, so here's our sear block Colt BCG 10.66. This is the Brownells full M16. I think it's made by Microbest. And 11.51. I did the math. The full carrier is 0.85 ounces heavier than the Colt shaved one. Okay, so the first thing this carbine is going to get, whether it needs it or not, is the new buffer spring. So we'll pull the old buffer out and see what it looks like and compare the lengths. So the old spring compared to the new spring, doesn't appear to be worn. So this doesn't matter at all, but what I noticed was the new spring is wound in the opposite direction as the old spring. You can see where the coils end here, and it doesn't matter if I turn it around. So they're wound in different directions. Not that it matters. So the original Bushmaster on the left, and you can see that the gap forming here where either this material is shrinking up or it's just been hammered enough to where it's starting to develop a little bit of a gap in there. And here's a brand new one. You can see there everything's tight. I'm going to go with an H1 this time around instead of the standard carbine. And if you're not familiar with the different buffer weights, standard 3 ounces, H1 3.8, H2 4.7, H3 5.6. And if you want to get really crazy, you can go over to heavybuffers.com and get some even heavier carbine stuff. So we're going to go with the H1, so it should be around 3.8. So here's the original, and it comes in just almost right at 3 ounces, so that one's perfect. And this H1 is Aero Precision, and it should be 3.8, and it comes in right at 3.8. So the buffer weights are perfect, but like I said, I'm going to go with the H1. So one of my pet peeves on the buffers is the roll pin that holds your cushion or your bumper in, and I like to make sure that they're even with the body. And this one's pretty good. Some of these you'll see when they put them together. This one side will stick way out past the body, and probably not going to do anything. But I just like to make sure that they're even and they don't stick out. So we'll get the new spring and the H1 in the lower, and we'll be done with the lower. So we're coming in from the chamber end, and like I was saying at the beginning of the video, this thing's been fired a few times, so who knows exactly what we're going to see. You can see some heat checking at the very beginning as we come in into the throat. And I want to say I got probably around 3,000 rounds in this thing, maybe more than that. I've had this thing so long, I can't remember how many rounds I fired. But you can see once we get past the very throat, the barrel cleans up pretty good. So we'll go down and take a look at the gas port, and if it's not all eaten up, then we'll put a new bolt in this thing. And then we gotta talk about the Brownells bolt that I bought. So I'm coming in from the muzzle end. This is the compensator, and the crown looks pretty good. It's not all eaten up. As soon as I, there we go. Okay, so the crown looks pretty good. So let's go in and take a look at the gas port. Okay, a little bit more heat checking right before you get to it. And there's a little bit of erosion up inside the gas port, but I would say not too bad. Yeah, we'll call this barrel good. So I've also decided to retire the original sear block BCG, and going to replace it with this Brownells. I think I might have mentioned it already. I think it's actually microbest. Externally, everything looks good. There's no dings or anything that's going to chew up your buffer back here. I ran my finger down all the bearing surfaces. There's no dings, chips, or anything on all the bearing surfaces. So everything looks good. The spacing of the roll pin for the ejector is evenly spaced. Everything looks good. All the chrome lining, I pulled the bolt out, looked inside. Everything looks real good. I didn't pin it out. I don't have all the pin gauges for it, but it looks good with one exception. And there's the original Colt staking. And that is what came on this thing. It's like, I think Brownells gets the #1 award for the least amount of staking I've ever seen on a BCG. Now you can see where, some material has been pushed in on the rear, and on the right side, not too bad, but over here, you can see it's making contact with the screw head, but not a whole lot going on there. Now, you don't have to swedge from the side. You can also swedge or, pin it in from the top, and I'll show you that in the Marine Corps manual. So I'm probably just going to run it for now, but I may come in later and stake it like the Marine Corps used to show. And they also show it being staked from the sides in this picture here. So there's different ways to stake your screws in. This is probably the preferred way, or let me show you the one that's done correctly. So like I said, I may come back in at a later date and just put in a few extra staking marks on the top of the gas key. So the other thing I found on the Brownells was the extractor spring. I just didn't like the way it looked. I mean, it looked almost like it came out of a ballpoint pen. It did not have the insert. It only came with an O-ring. So I'll pop the extractor apart real quick, and I'll show you that I replaced the spring with a Springco. I put the insert and the O-ring on. It probably doesn't need both of them, but we'll start out with both of them. So let me get the extractor off, and I'll show you what I did. Okay, so this is the 4-coil Springco. You can see the insert inside, which the BCG did not come with. And like I said, I'm going to start off with both the insert and the O-ring and this 4-coil Springco. Brownell's carrier is a good fit. Slides right over the gas key. And the gas tube's probably got a little bit of wear on the bubble flare. So I wouldn't expect any issues. But anyway, it all slides in here, and it's a good fit. So you can see in the cam slot area of the receiver, a little bit of wear. I kind of ran this over, and I don't feel a ridge or any kind of mushrooming or anything like that. It's just more like where the anodize wore off. Like I was saying earlier in the video, I've fired this thing a few times. Okay, if you're going to put a new bolt in your rifle, it's probably a good idea to headspace it. I'm going to start off with a no-go gauge, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, I have the no-go in there, and I pushed really hard on the back, and it will not go into full battery, so that's good. Okay, I have the go gauge in here now. We'll see if it goes into full battery, which it does. Okay, I checked firing pin protrusion off camera, and I used my extractor gauge to make sure that the extractor claw was getting a hold of the brass, and it gets a hold of it pretty good. So let's get this thing slapped back together. Okay, well, we didn't blueprint everything. I think we checked enough of the basics to make sure what we did is going to be safe. I haven't fired this thing in, man, I don't know how long. It's been years and years and years, so we'll see how that H1 buffer works out. I may go to an H2 if it runs with the H1. I'm going to stick with the original Bushmaster mil-spec type trigger. I may change that out at a later date, put something nicer in, but for right now, I'm just going to keep it in there. So anyway, yeah, like I said, we'll get this thing out there and make sure everything works. Pete in North Las Vegas, over and out.